Welcome to Daughters of Divine Joy, the radio show for women who are tired of choosing between success and their sanity. Each week, we gather around this virtual table to talk about the things nobody else is saying out loud: how to lead without burning, how to set boundaries without guilt, how to honor your calling without sacrificing your soul. This is a sacred place for women who are done accepting chaos as normal and ready to claim the joy that's been their birthright all along. This is Daughters of Divine Joy. Welcome.
Hey, hey, hey. How's everybody doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. I am Diane Butts, and we are Daughters of Divine Joy. We're here today to talk about some things that maybe have been on your mind, some things I want to talk about. And I want to talk about um, remembering our dreams. One of the things that has struck me is that, and I'm not going to talk about this today in its totality because it's something that I've been musing about and just trying to see how it fits into my belief structure. But I'm I've been wondering about looking and redefining my personal theology and what I believe, because I have been thinking that, our ancestors have survived all these many years in this country. And what parts of faith can we transform, or can we elevate from that of a survival based theology to one of more of a thriving based theology? And I'm struggling with some things with that, because I know intellectually there are some parts of my faith that I don't know that I would change. I don't know if I could change it. But as I think about how we teach the next generation about our faith, do I want them to feel powerless? Do I want them to feel as though they don't have agency and faith, like it doesn't work together? And I think it does. Um, do I want them to work from um, a thinking or a theology of lack, or a theology of abundance? And I'm not talking about prosperity theology. I'm just talking about knowing that you worship a God who has created all and has created us. And so why are we worrying about little things that we don't have? Okay. So, that's what I'm talking about. But just in that, one of the things that it has caused me to do is focus on thinking about what my dreams were. Sometimes during life, we have dreams like when you're a little girl, you or a little, a young person, because, I know men listen to this as well. When you are young and in your mind, you say, oh, I want to be this when I grow up. I want to be that. And then life happens. And you go to college, you major in something, and you start looking for a job, and you maybe kind of fall into a job that wasn't quite in line with your major, but you're stuck there and you're working, and 5 years in, 10 years in, now you have a skill set that's based in maybe mortgage, and your background was in something else, like maybe history, but you find yourself working in mortgages. It wasn't what you dreamed of, but it pays the bills, and so you're there. And maybe 20 years in, something doesn't feel right, and you're not happy in it. You're not fulfilled by it, but you're in it. And so I believe we call that settling. Not think. I know we call that settling. But it's also real. It's something that you developed over time. It's something you've invested in. So how does that fall with your dreams? How can it be manifested into something else? How could you evolve it into something else that may make you a little more excited about what you're doing, may um, be able to align with the skills that you developed over time in that particular job? Um, but it wasn't the things you dreamt about. So I want us to focus on, and let's talk about remembering our dreams. When I was young, I wanted to be an attorney. And I would tell everyone who asked me, what are you going to be when you grow up? I'm going to be a lawyer. And I would always hear, you can't be that. And the reason why I couldn't be that is because women were not lawyers. Now, I was born in the late 50s, and there weren't a lot of women lawyers, very few. There weren't a lot of women in law school. Mostly there were men. And so, for the most part, the professions you saw women going into were education, nursing, or being a secretary or something, had to do with administrative office work. Well, I believe when I took my first typing test, I typed 35 words a minute. And years later, after a lot of keyboarding, I typed 35 words a minute. So I was never going to make any money being a secretary. No. My organizational skills are not lacking, but nobody's going to pay me to organize stuff, okay? I can organize things, but I do it my way and in my time. So I don't think I'd be like a project manager or anything. That wouldn't excite me at all. And so that dream of being an attorney was also transformed into something else as I got to know myself, as I got to see the things and know what excited me and where I thought my gifts were, and where I felt called to be was in social work and social justice and helping people. And that's where I felt very comfortable, very alive. It was natural for me to do that. It was my gift and my calling. And so I looked at, how can I do this as an attorney? And I could do it as an attorney, but I didn't see where the payoff was going to be. And if I was going to spend all that money going to school to become an attorney, I didn't want to do it to be a poor attorney. You get me? Okay. So I didn't think the investment was worth what I was going to get out of it and what I was being called to do. So I ended up going to school, majoring in sociology. I learned a lot about the world and how it functions and how it's structured. I learned a lot about oppression and different types of government, whether it's socialism or communism or capitalism, such as we have here. And I began to see and understand how structures work, to keep the rich rich or the poor poor. I began to see how the constructs of race were established in order that a certain particular people could be the ruling class. I started understanding how things like the medical system and education work together to to undergird all these things in these structures we call institutions. So it gave me a lot to work with. I went on to work in social services and eventually went back to school to get my master's in social work. And I worked as a school social worker. That's exactly the type of work I wanted to do. I loved it, did it for 20 plus years and retired from it. And so, although I didn't live my dream as a attorney, I was okay because I was doing the things I felt called to and led to. And so for me, it was fulfilling. I felt like I was living my purpose. I was able to live according to the value system that I had established for myself. So when I look back over my life, I'm pretty happy about some of the things that I've done. There's not a whole lot I want to do over and not a whole lot I regret it. I always loved children, but I couldn't have any of my own. So, I adopted when I was 41, and that was cool. My daughter's 35 now, and, we have a great relationship, love her to death. And she is one of the best things I've ever done with my life. But I sit back now and I said, okay, what are some of the things that you didn't get to? What is still burning in your heart? Because even at being in my late 60s, there are things that are burning. There are things that I still have and still passionate about or want to do. um so i I started thinking, like, how many people gave up their dreams because maybe you went to college and got pregnant, and maybe you didn't graduate because you needed to take care of your child and the money wasn't there any longer, and you didn't have child care, or you didn't have the infrastructure to continue, and so you left hoping that you would go back one day. You started your family, maybe even got married young. And I saw some of these things happening with other people. And so it left me wondering this week, how many people are still deferring dreams? Langston Hughes wrote a poem about it. Well, here you go. Now, what happens to a dream deferred? And the question's asked, what happens to it? Where does it go? Does that dream in you die, or does it fester and puss up like a sore? So that's the question I ask you today. What is it that you haven't gotten to yet? What is it that you delayed because life happened? Are there things in your life that you still want to do that you haven't done yet? Are there accomplishments that you'd like to do, like to accomplish? One of the things that I used to always tell my dad is that I was going to be the first doctor in the family. I was going to be the one that got to get a doctor. Now, I wasn't. One of my second cousins was, but it wasn't me, at least not yet. And that's still a dream of mine, and it's still something I'm working towards accomplishing. Um, and so I'm asking, is there a voice in you that says, I still want to do this? Is there a part of you that's aching or mourning the thing that was lost because of life, because of choices you made that took you down a different road? And what was it that stopped you? Was it someone telling you that you couldn't do it? I remember I have wanted to, when my first foray into the field of education was as a sixth grade teacher. I hated being in the classroom. And so when they laid off new teachers that year, I think I ran out that building in June faster than the kids. I might have run over a couple of them getting out that building. I wasn't comfortable there. I wasn't doing the thing in education that I felt led to do or called to do. And it's funny how you're there being paid to be a teacher, to impart information, to stimulate learning. And all I was wondering is, why isn't this kid coming to school? What's going on at home? How can I help him? I wonder what's going on with the mother. Does she have any supports? What can I do to put things in place for her to support her and being a better parent? How can I support this kid emotionally? Those are the things I was thinking about. Okay, it wasn't about math, it wasn't about English, but it was about their social, emotional health and well being. And so for me, being a school social worker was a better fit. Really was a better fit. And so I finished that year, and I was on unemployment, and I decided I wanted to be a therapist. And when I told my mother, she said, I wouldn't do that. Why do you want to do? I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. And I said, but you're not doing it. And she said, well, I wouldn't do it if I were you. And I said, but you're not me. And she said, I don't understand why I wouldn't be touching people. I said, well, you're not going to be touching people. Okay. And I did it anyway. And that's the one thing I am happy about, that I didn't stop because of what other people told me, at least not there. Now, there's some things that I did not do because of other people and their advice or their opinions, and how I let their limited thinking impose my wanting to spread my wings and soar. I allowed the practicalities and the limitations that they placed on themselves to be the same ones that I placed on me. And sometimes we learn that from our family. It's a generational thing. We pass down beautiful things through generations, but we also pass down limiting things. Um, I never learned how to swim because my mother was afraid of water. Does that make sense? And so, because she was so afraid, she made sure her children were afraid and never got the opportunity to learn how to swim. Meanwhile, my father was a great swimmer, and he would often encourage us, but we never had formal lessons. I never had anybody to help me deal with that fear of water. When I put my head underwater, it's as if somebody is choking me and cut off my breath. That's how great the fear is. Um, and so when I have sat down this week and allowed myself to be in a reflective space where I can think about what it is that I still have yet to be. When I think about what have I omitted from my life that would have fed my life differently. And I often wonder, is it too late to get those things? And that goes back to this whole theology thing I was thinking about in the intro. Um, is it something in my faith that's telling me not to? Do I explain away the things I'm afraid to do by saying, I guess God doesn't want it for me because it didn't happen? That's limiting. And we can't put that on God. That's on us. When you embrace fear instead of being fearless and having the faith to walk forward. And so, what is it that we need to do? What is the work in dreaming or remembering our dreams that we need to do in the upcoming week? And I say that we need to do because in remembering your dreams, you remember who you are. You remember that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You remember that you are a child of God. You remember that you have no time to worry because everything that you need will be supplied to you. We don't need to worry, and yet we do, and yet we limit, and yet we decide that we cannot fully live into the dreams that we had for our lives. So let's take a moment and think about this. Um, what are the things that you have said to yourself to make you believe you can't? And when I say the things you said to yourself, sometimes we make statements like, "Well, I would if I never been much of a leader, so I don't know if I can take this job as a supervisor." Those are the things we tell ourselves, and it's our narrative. It's the way we come to look at who we are, how we are, and what we manifest in this world. And I say to myself, if I don't believe I can do it, who's supposed to believe that I can do it? And so what narrative are you repeating to yourself? What tape is playing in your inner mind that's limiting you from doing the thing that you've always wanted to do, the thing that you're dreaming about doing? Maybe you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and instead of using 3 or 4 hours a week to set yourself up and pursue this thing and put some energy into researching, you're listening to the tape saying, "Ain't nobody in this family ever been had no business. Where you getting that from? You know how much of a risk that is? You ain't got no money to be putting in no invested in no business." Telling you all those things that are keeping you from maybe blossoming into something that that was always with you, inside of you, wanting to get out, wanting to blossom, wanting to be released. But we don't release it because of some kind of limiting thought. And so that's where we get into the act of what is called reframing. And this is what I always tell people when I'm coaching, or even if I'm doing counseling or something with somebody: write down the thoughts that you have that are negative or limiting. And for every thought that you write down, write a thought to counter that. And I'm not just talking about an affirmation, I'm talking about saying, retelling this story over. How can I retell this story over? You can say, I was a victim of sexual assault, or you can say, I am a survivor of sexual assault. There's two different things. There's two different ways of looking at sexual assault. It is something that happened to you, it is a defining moment. But what did you do with that moment? And what can you do after that moment to change the narrative? And reframing it helps you tell a different story about what happened. Yes, you can honor the feelings, you can honor the pain, you can honor the victimization you felt, but you don't have to stay there. And that's what reframing allows you to do. It allows you to control the narrative, to make it a story about your triumph, your victory, and your overcoming. And so that gets into that whole survival theology to thriving theology. How do I believe God helps me to thrive as opposed to just getting by, just surviving and scraping? Because we've done that for 400 years, and it is my thought that I am so tired of doing that. I don't feel like I had to. My ancestors have done it for too long, and I shouldn't have to. And I don't want to. I want to be victorious. I want to embrace those things that I read about when I'm in relationship with my Lord, when I'm reading my word, when I'm in church and I'm hearing that the music of spirit. It is not survival. It is not victimhood that I'm embracing any longer. It's something else. So, what are your dreams, or what has stopped you from those dreams? Because it's time for us to arrest those things. It's time for us to take those things, those ways of thinking that have kept you in bondage and have kept you away from living fully into who you were purposed to be. It's time for you to take those things and put them away, release them, let them go, because they're not serving you, they're not doing you any good. So why are you embracing them? We have something called agency, and we have something called personal power. And it's about time we start exercising that. Understand your value, understand the power that you hold in your dreams, in you wanting to become these different things. Think about whether or not there's something about you that people always compliment. Is there something about you that people are always saying, oh, you are so good at that. You are so warm and welcoming. You got a beautiful smile. I always feel so good when I'm around you. Or you just pay attention to the slightest little details. You're good with hospitality. You pay attention to the details. Every little step of the plan you execute with excellence. Maybe you are a project manager. Maybe you're an event planner. Maybe you should have your own business. Maybe you should be in the hospitality, a party planner, running a bed and breakfast. How can you use that? How can you use that skill in a way that it serves you and helps you to achieve a dream? Okay, so I want to get to some things that we can do to help ourselves to get back in touch with these dreams. One of the things that we have that I think especially Black Christians have gotten away from, and that is ancestor veneration. Not worship, I worship God, but I do remember my ancestors. I remember the parts of them that they gave to me. I remember the parts of them that I didn't pick up. I remember fully who they were. And I even remember the pain of them not achieving their goals. My father only had a sixth grade education. It hurt him so much that he was robbed of the opportunity to have an education. And so my love of learning and education came from him because he didn't have it. He didn't want me to carry that same thing. He didn't want me to have to work in anybody's factory. He didn't want me to have to be a part of the machine of manufacturing. And believe me, I worked a summer at Ford Motor Company. I understood what it was to be a part of that assembly line because you really weren't looked at as being human. You were part of the machinery that got the car off the line. And believe me, after that summer and after my freshman year, I had my grades weren't that good. Okay, so I went to work at Ford Motor Company, got this little summer job, told a little tale I wasn't going back to college. I need to get money for college, so they hired me, thinking I was going to be there, but I knew it was going to be short term. And after I had worked my body so hard and so intensely. I remember going home one day, my hands was all scraped up from putting my hands under in the engine trying to connect different wires and things like that, and everybody laughing at me because it took me so long, but I was so determined to get it right. And after that night, I was going to the car with my father, and he said, "You look tired." I said, "Daddy, everything on my body is hurting. Even my fingernails hurt." I said, "You ain't got to worry about me no more being in school. I will not waste 1 minute being there because I know this." He said, "What?" I said, "I ain't built for this." He started laughing. He said, "That's what I've been trying to tell you." Um, I don't know if you all follow Urban View, but I listened to Clay Kane. He wrote a book called Burn Down Master's House, and there's a line that's repeated throughout. Don't let them take what they can't touch. And for my father, education was that thing. And he always said to me, the white man can't take your education. They can cancel your job, they can take away your apartment, they can even close your bank account or cancel, the turn off your lights. But one thing they can't do is take your education from you. So education was as important as diamonds or gold for me. And so, yes, I was going to get an advanced degree. Yes, I was going to do these things because that's what was given to me. That was the dream of my father that he never had, that he made so important to me, so precious to me. And I accepted it as that. So as I dream and as I still dream, yes, getting a doctorate degree is important to me. It is the pentacle of what I can do in my field. And so it's something that I'm still looking to pursue. It's funny, last summer, I think it was, I heard about this woman who was 83 years old. I cannot remember her name, but she was the oldest doctoral candidate to graduate from Howard University in the history of Howard University. And my husband said, "Now, what is she going to do with that doctorate now? She's 83 years old." I said, "Any damn thing she wants." She got the degree, she did the work. Her mind is able to do whatever she puts it to. She can do whatever she wants. Whether she wants to teach, whether she wants to consult, or whether she just wants to hang that thing on a wall and have people address her as doctor, whatever she wants, it was worth it for her. So, what is it? that you've been stopped from doing? How has life thwarted the thing that you thought you would want to do with your life? For some people, it's nothing. Listen, I want you to sit down and think about some of the oral stories you have heard. What did you get from those stories? And I'm going to tell you, I didn't hear a lot about from my mother. I didn't hear a lot about our family members. I don't know if they were just unremarkable people or just regular folks trying to make it the best way they could, but I didn't hear a lot about family members. But I tell you what, she made sure I knew who Black writers were, who Black inventors were. She made sure I had books around me that would that would tell the stories of enslaved people in a way that gave them dignity. She made sure that I understood where I had come from and the strength that had that flows in my veins and where that came from. She made me understand that those people that survived the Middle Passage were also the same people that end up surviving enslavement, who survived Jim Crow and Reconstruction, who survived the civil rights. This is where I came from, and these are the people I need to honor. Okay, so I tell you what, it's time for a break. Um, I can't see anything. I don't know if I got a call. I'm so sorry. Um, let's take a break, have a commercial right now, and I'll see you on the other side. Take care.
A doctor's calling, a company's mission, united for a greater good. When Edmark International, the pioneers of wellness, joined forces with Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire, naturopath, the world gained a new weapon in the fight for true health. Co-created, science-backed, nature-powered. This isn't just a product. This is a movement. Born from decades of groundbreaking research, naturopathic mastery, and Edmark's relentless innovation.
The body wants to heal itself, and we have just given it the ultimate toolkit.
A detox unlike any other. A partnership unlike any other. The future of health starts now.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for returning. We're back now. We're still talking about dreams and dreaming, and not just dreaming just to be talking about something that you want to think about trying to do, but what things are in your core, what things are a part of who you are, you've been carrying for a while, a vision that you've been carrying, a desire that you've been carrying, a burning, that a fire shut up in your bones that you've been carrying. What are those things? And when are you going to do them? Because doing them is resistance. Doing them tells the world that you cannot be stopped by their limitations. And I think that as Black folks, we've been sending that message, although people still aren't reading the room and they're not really understanding the message because they don't want to. But we've broken free of a lot of change that folks tried to put on us. And so let's talk about that in a little different. One of the things that we do hold on to and understand is that we were made in the image of God. And let me tell you that if you have low self-esteem, and if you have problems seeing yourself as being beautiful or valued, when you hold on to that thought, and I mean really hold it, wrestle with it, think about it, reflect on it, journal it, you understand the power that is within you. Remember who you are. Remember whose you are. Remember that you were created by a God with no limitations. So stop placing them on yourself. I'm not saying you are God, but I'm saying there's some things in you that nobody can stop and nobody can break. And so we need to take some time to engage those thoughts about what it is that we could do. I'm going to engage. Oh man, we got a new number. maybe we can get the engineer to put that number up so you all can call in. Um, I want you to think about how faith has played a part in there we go. How faith has played a part in bringing us from from hither to yon. From here to there. And so I want you to understand how um, it wasn't what we were told about God and about Jesus or Christianity. It's what we embodied, what we knew in our spirits, what we carried with us through the middle passage. That was not the same thing that we learned about when we got here. Okay. So I want you to understand how the power of faith brought us through suffering. We didn't find Jesus in our suffering, but our understanding of Jesus got us through our suffering. That's part of our inheritance. So remember how faith was used to help us get over. I want you to understand not only how our faith, because faith is a two-way thing, how God's faithfulness has seen us through. And if you've ever been down to your last dime, if you've ever been between a rock and a hard place, if you've ever been in a place where you know there was not going to be any kind of human intervention that could help you, and you needed a miracle, and that miracle came, then you understand the kind of faith that I'm talking about. God's faithfulness, trusting in God, believing in God, and waiting on God. Because you know only God can help you. Also, remembering your divine assignment. Now, let me tell you, if we're going to work and you working 12 hours a day, you ain't going to have time for this. You have to make sure that you carve out some time for you so that you can close your eyes and dream a little bit. Before I came on, I was so tired. And I was sitting like this on my desk. And I said, child, go lay down. Just go lay down. I had like an hour. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go lay down. And my husband was watching TV. And he said, you want me to go? I'll turn off the television and I'll go in the other room. I said, mm-mm. He said, well, you might want to fall asleep. I said, and you'll hear me snore. Because it was that deep, that need to rest. And I find that I've been doing that a lot, but I had a dream. I dreamt, I recalled some things that helped me to understand why I had to go lay down in the first place. And it was more like I had a little talk with Jesus while I was laying down there. It was a spiritual moment that I enjoyed. And I woke up and I felt refreshed and I said, okay, I can do this now. I can do this. And it was just, I don't even think it was 45 minutes. I said I had an hour. It was about 45 minutes that I laid there and I went into a deep sleep. A deep sleep. I don't know if I snored or not. I can't tell you that. I may have, but it was deep and it was refreshing. And when it was over, I just got up. Nobody had to wake me up and I got up. Make time. You have a divine assignment, and to have lived your life for however long God grants it and never really tapping into your true purpose. Maybe you are fulfilling your purpose, but it's not loud and it doesn't look sexy or it doesn't look like what Instagram says it should look like. It's all right. But there's something you could be doing that brings you so much joy, that makes you feel connected to something holy, that makes you feel good, like you're making a difference. That's your divine assignment. God has not kept you this long for no reason. And so some of the ways that you can do this is making sure that you pray prayers to remember, to ask God to help you remember where you came from and where you're going, to give you the visions that you need to have in order to get there, to help You climb over obstacles and help you move obstacles. There's an old gospel song. God, don't move my mountains, just give me the strength to climb. Or going up on the rough side of the mountain. Somebody told me we I ain't never climbed a smooth mountain because I don't see how you're gonna get up that one. There's always roughness in the mountain. And it's all right. And it's okay because there's growth there. Um, so we remember in our prayers, we create rituals around remembering. How do you help your children remember where they came from? Do they know where they came from? Because sometimes we done got so cute and we done got so sedity, we don't want to talk about where we came from. We don't exchange stories about our history. And maybe because we don't really know. And maybe you don't know your personal history, but we be a family, okay? Our community has done great and mighty things, and our children can draw strength and power from those stories. And they go beyond Rosa. That's all they get in their school is Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. And so making sure that there are rituals in your household that you do with intention and with purpose. Purpose for giving the next generation something to hold on to, something to stand on, something to draw from when they feel depleted and feel beat up by this world. We have to give this to them. And so we need to create some kind of ritual where either at family dinners, we're sharing things and make sure you hear from the babies. We're talking about what we're thankful for. We're talking about the people that have inspired us, books that we're reading that have shown us and given us vision of what could be. Make sure that we're teaching the children to remember through those rituals and just from sitting down with them and asking them, who are you? Not what do you do, not what do you like, but who are you? What are your values? What's at the core of your being? What's important to you? What do you stand on as a human being? One of my greatest gifts is the gift of empathy. I am not only able to hear people tell me, to hear people's pain when they share their stories, hear their joy. I see it on them. I can read it from their spirit. I can feel it in my spirit. It's a blessing, and sometimes it feels like a curse, but it's a blessing. It has helped me be a good social worker. And because I've had some excellent training in social work, it also helps me to be aware of what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling, and where those feelings belong and who they belong to. And so I don't pick up and carry things that aren't necessarily mine, but it is a gift that I have, and I enjoy that. And it's important to me to feel what other people are feeling. Understand this. We forget when we're overwhelmed. So that's why I said if you're working 12-hour days, if you got a job that's so intense, if you're moving from here to there, you got committees, you got all kinds of stuff you're involved in, you have to be intentional about taking that time to sit and remember your dreams, not the dreams of your sorority, not the dreams of your fraternity, not the dreams of the founder, your dreams. Not your children's dreams, not your spouse's dreams, your dreams, not what your mother dreamt, your dreams. You have to take time for that. So whether you get up in the morning and allow an extra 15 minutes, an extra 30 minutes to focus and reflect on your dreams, do that. Because if you're not intentional about the time, years will pass by and you are nowhere near that dream. And sometimes we get angry and pissed off when we realize we've given to everybody else and didn't give to ourselves. And is that their fault? Not really. it's something that we get into. It's part of that survival flow that we attach ourselves to. So when you're overwhelmed, you're not going to be able to remember squat. So I want you to know that, because I need you to sit down somewhere. Go sit down somewhere. Get yourself together and think about what it is you want to do. Also, those narratives that I was telling you about, we got to look at those narratives. We need to explore those things that we hear that aren't really true. And we need to learn how to go to battle. And sometimes the best way you can go to battle is to get on your knees and pray. And if that doesn't work, you go see a therapist and you battle that crap in the therapy room. But you fight it, because that's not who you are. That's who people said you are. And you have a right to self-determination. So I expect you to exercise that right, because we thriving. We ain't just surviving. The other thing is that I want you to understand that deferred dreams can cause damage. Okay. I always, when I was doing street ministry, the one thing that I always said, ain't nobody woke up one day and said when they were a little kid, I can't wait to become a heroin addict. That's not something anybody wants to be. It's just something that happens to them through a series of unfortunate events. Maybe it was bad decisions, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was bad influence, I don't know. But I do know this. Behind the addiction is a person, is a child of God, is the image of God. And they have the right to self-determination. They have a right to have that deferred dream realized. And so we have to really sit and say, what is it that I want to be before reality took place, before reality happened, before reality set in and set us on a road that was so different? What was that thing we wanted to be? And so those are just some of the things that I would like for you to do. This is another thing before I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon. The other thing I want you to think about, what is it that was handed to you by your ancestors, by your elders, that we can honor but not repeat? And I want you to understand, we can honor the work and of the labor of our ancestors' hands. We can honor their work ethic, but we don't have to work ourselves to exhaustion just because they did. Okay, we honor the fact that they did, because that allowed us to have some freedoms, but we can have those freedoms. We don't have to deny those freedoms because they didn't have them. Also, I want you to understand that sometimes we get into a mode of people pleasing, and we will people please ourselves into destruction. People please ourselves into an empty vessel where we have nothing to give ourselves. And sometimes get bitter and angry in the meantime, because we feel like we've been used by so many folks, always giving and nobody ever gives. I want you to understand that sometimes our elders and our ancestors had to be silent, but we can speak up. There was a situation that I have a friend shared with me, that somebody on a job got overlooked for promotion and was told the reason why. Well, you didn't have this and you didn't quite that. And we were looking for somebody that had more of that. And of course, you know how it is on jobs. They want you to train the person that came in and has all this experience that's over and above yours. That was so much more qualified than you. You got to train them. And folks get to talk, and when they get comfortable, and you find out some things, I'm going to let you know we don't have to be quiet. We can go seek counsel from a workplace attorney, a labor attorney. We can go to HR. We can voice our dissatisfaction. We can let people know that we understand that we were dealt an injustice or a disservice, I'm sorry. And so we have a voice, and it's okay to use that voice. Be strategic in how you use it. Make sure you have your receipts, all the emails and the things in writing. Make sure you have all of that. But you don't have to hold your peace. You can state your peace. Now there's PEACE, peace, and there's PIECE, peace. Sometimes your peace is a statement you need to make about the situation. It doesn't always mean you got to explode all over the place and just be cussing up a storm. And maybe that is warranted in some situations, but usually not at work. What I'm saying is there are some things that our ancestors did, our elders have done, that we have watched all our lives that we don't have to do. And so make sure you know we can honor the things that they did, but we can create new avenues and paths for ourselves. And that's what has me thinking about this whole idea of survival and thriving. Because I'm ready to stop just surviving. The thriving track looks real good to me. And I don't know that I don't follow trends. I don't try to jump on the first train. I like tradition, but I'm looking, there's some shifts that we're making right now. There's some shifts that need to be made. And so for me, it is a time of exploration and questioning. It's a time of reflecting and sitting with God and sitting with this word and say, Lord, show me something different. Okay, so I think that I'd like to talk about this next week. I have some good things planned for the future. I want to bring in a male voice so that we can, because last week reminded me that we also had men listening. We had a gentleman that called in, sounded like a young man, and I appreciated that call so much. And so I want to make sure that we're speaking to the brothers as well as women. I think what the message can be embraced by anyone, but I don't want men to think this is only for women. So let's look at, again, just review some of the things we need to do to go from survival to thriving. Remember who you are. Remember what your story is. And tell it as a victor and not as a victim. Remember your dreams, what you want it to be. Look at who you are now. What is there still left to do? What work do you need to do? And how are you going to embrace that? Reframe your limitations, because I will end it all for you. So we're not talking about what we can't do. We remember what we can do and who we are. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for dialing into PA Network, Empowerment Network. I thank you for coming, listening to the show. I thank you for your attention to all of the wonderful programming we have here at the Empowerment Network. So until next week, I will see you. I love you, and I want you to live your best lives. Have a good week. You all will be blessed. Amen. Amen.